Hello, I'm Brad Carter, a local chef based in Birmingham. Today we're going to be cooking one of your bank's ingredients, which is a Swede, the humble Swede. We're going to turn it into something innovative, hopefully something you'll give a go yourself. So the first stage of the recipe, we need to peel the Swede and grate it, just on a normal box grater, mum grater. So we peel back the Swede. Peel it until you can see the orange coming through underneath. I'm using just like a speed peeler as well. You can use a straight vegetable peeler, that's absolutely fine. Once you peel back the whole Swede, just make sure you get all of it off. Don't need to end up in the recipe. At this stage, we're going to grate it. I'm going to take the box grater. A really good way of using one of these is on its side because it doesn't clog up. So when you use it on its side, everything just falls out the bottom and you can grate more. Swede's very versatile. You can use it in your Sunday roasts, use it mashed with carrots, something called stump. These are all really nice things, but today we're going to introduce it into like a ramen noodle broth. Just falls out, look. So you can see we grated the Swede now, peeled it, grated it on the box grater, and that's ready for the next stage. So what we've got in a pan here is something called Dashi Stock. So this is instant powdered stock. It's a Japanese stock made of seaweed, and it's traditionally used as the base for miso soup. So you'd start off with the granules, add water, and then finish it with the miso paste. We're not going to introduce the miso paste, we're just using the base stock. So you can buy this in a lot of supermarkets now in sachets, so it's Dashi soup base. So we put the granules into some hot water, according to the packet, grated the Swede, and that's going to go into the Dashi stock. What's going to happen is all of the juice and the liquid inside of a Swede is going to flavour the broth, and that's exactly what we're looking for. A Swede is made up of about 80% water. So all of this water contains all the Swede flavour. So we're going to cook it now in the Dashi broth. And that's going to bring out all of the Swede concentrated flavour out of it. Cook the Swede at the same time and then discard it, so we're left with the best bit, which is the juice and all of the flavour. So we're going to put that back on the heat now to cook. Cook the Swede inside the Dashi stock for about an hour on the stove, and we're going to sit it at a low simmer, just ticking over. We don't want it boiling very hard, it's going to reduce too fast. So we're just going to cook that Swede inside the Dashi stock, have it on the stove for around about an hour, a nice little simmer. So the next stage of the recipe, we're going to make some noodles. Sounds daunting, but it's actually quite easy. You could use packet convenience noodles if you wanted to. Pre-made ones like egg noodles, they'd be perfect. But you know, we've got a bit more time on our hands, so let's have a go at trying making some. So, 3 ingredients. We've got some high protein flour, so 0-0 or strong bread flour. That's the high gluten we're looking for, so that we get the elasticity, so we get a good chew on the noodles. Some water, and we're making them in a Japanese style, so they're called Alkaline Noodles, and they have a lot more chew and texture to them because there's something in here called lye water, which you can buy from Chinatown. So you put 112 grams of water into the jug with 12.5 grams of lye, and that's going to higher the pH in the noodles and make them chewy. You can do it without the lye water, but actually, you know, for what it is, we can make a much better noodle. You can see instantly as well, the lye sends the flour yellow, and that's a good sign. So you're going to mix the dough. One thing to remember with this dough, it's going to feel very dry. It's going to feel like you need to add more water. You're going to think, oh, I'm going to add some more liquid. Don't. You will change the texture. You'll make it too wet and you won't be able to cut them. The reason there's less water is to give that chew, texture and flavour when you're eating the noodles. Even though you think it's dry, don't worry. Once you've worked it, it's going to come together. So keep the dough working in the bowl. Once you've got it to a certain consistency, you can drop it out onto your surface and work it a little bit more. Okay, so there's the noodle dough now. And then we're just going to work it just like kneading bread. Any excess you can just put it all together. And you're not going to work it until it's really smooth like bread dough, but you are going to work it until it's become one and the flour and the water in there together. That's about right. So once you've got the dough to that stage, you're going to wrap it in some cling film, plastic wrap, or paper, or anything you've got. The dough is going to go into the fridge for 30 minutes to rest, and then we're going to cut it into noodles. So now the dough's been in the fridge for half an hour to rest, we can roll it out and cut it into the noodles. So as you can see, that's the whole portion of dough. You can also scale the dough up if you're feeding more people. This is about the smallest amount I'll do. So it's 250 grams of flour, 112 grams of water and 12 grams of lye. So we put it out onto the surface with a little bit of the same flour, so like 00 flour, bread flour, perfect for this. And then we're just going to roll it out to about ½ centimetre. This is the really good way of doing it at home, doing it by hand and cutting the noodles with a knife. If you have got a pasta maker, that does make life a little bit easier and cuts all the noodles to exactly the same size. But if you haven't, it doesn't matter because you can do it exactly like this by hand. You can see the dough shrinking back quite quickly. That's because it's high protein, high gluten. You just got to put in a little bit of effort. Also with noodles, you don't want them too thin like pasta. You do want a little bit of depth because that's what's going to give you the texture and the chew. If they're too fine, too small, when they go into the broth, they could disintegrate and absorb too much of the liquid and then be too wet. So we're looking for that ramen style noodle, soup style noodle. Also the noodle dough keeps for about 7 days in the fridge. So if you did want to scale it up, that's cool, you can go back to it for another meal, maybe do some dry noodles. Okay, once you've got the dough to around about that thickness, that's good for rolling up and cutting into noodle shapes. So I'm going to roll it into the centre, roll it over like so, and then that's good to go onto the board and cut into noodles. Okay, once your noodles have been rolled up and ready to cut into the shape, put some more flour down in front of your board, set yourself up a board and a straight bladed chef's knife, and we're going to just cut along the noodle dough to give us the right thickness of noodle. So that's down to how thick we want them. We can go thicker, we're just going to take longer to cook. We can go thinner if we want thinner noodles. We're going to flour just in front of the board so that when we've cut the noodles we can pile them up into the portions. Take the knife. And you can see we're just cutting the noodles to the thickness that we're looking for. So you can see we've got the noodle dough on the folded side, and then we're just cutting them exactly the size we're looking for. Like I said, if you can go thicker, the noodles are just going to take longer to cook. You can see that. Noodles. So when you're cutting the noodles, flour in front of you, it enables you to pile up the portions you're going to cook. This just makes it easier for picking up and putting into the pot and working out how many people you're cooking for. So I like to do it like this in front of me, so I've got one here, one here. If we're cooking for 4 people, we just scale it up, so one here, one here, one here, one here. Just remember, a little bit of flour, stop everything sticking. And then that's it, the noodles are cut, and then they'll be ready to be blanched in some hot boiling water. So now we've done the big jobs on the dish. We've got the Swede cooking there away in the dashi there. We've got the noodles made. They're cut, ready to be dropped into the boiling hot water. We're going to do the garnishes for the top of the ramen, the Swede dashi and the noodles. So the garnishes we're going to use are some nice fresh green spring onions, some red chilli, more or less depending on how you like it, some coriander. We're also going to finish it with some sesame seeds, sesame oil, which you can buy from Chinatown, Chinese supermarkets, and probably most supermarkets. And we're also going to put in a nice little boiled egg as well. So first thing we've got to do, we're going to chop the spring onions and the chilli up, ready for the top of the soup. So on spring onions, the green part, that's the bit you can eat raw. It's not an onion, it's really nice to eat raw, so we're going to cut that really thin. The white part, that does benefit from a little bit of cooking. You can still eat it raw, but it is quite harsh onion flavour, so we're going to cut that even finer. And we'll stop there, and then these parts we could use for another recipe, pop them back in the fridge. So that's the spring onions chopped nice and fine there. Use a nice sharp knife as well for things like that, because any juice that you leave on the board is the flavour you're leaving behind. The chilli, a good way to chop the chilli is you can see that they naturally curl as they grow. So if you follow that angle around and finish slice it, you're only going to be able to keep it even. So we're going to nip the end off. And then finish slice. I like spice and I like chilli seeds. I like it hot, so I'm just going to leave them in. But if you don't, all you got to do, stop there, give the chilli a little rub, and then you can just knock out the seeds. Obviously, I'm going to leave them in, I like it spicy. I'm also going to chop the whole chilli because I really do like it hot, but if you think it's enough, just stop and save the chilli for something else. That's the red chilli. You can use green chilli as well, work just as well, a little bit more sour. And then, last but definitely not least, some fresh coriander. So we're just going to pull off a few pieces. This is a really good one to keep whole, flavour-wise, because the more you chop it, the more flavour you lose onto your board. So just try and keep the leaves whole, they're a delicious whole. This is a little guideline for something to work off, but if there's something you prefer, like pak choy, you can put that through there. You can put all sorts of vegetables that cook quickly, or you can eat raw, on the top of your noodles and your ramen soup. It's just down to what you like the most. This is a little guideline for you to work along and have something to follow. So that's it now, we've got all the garnishes ready. We're going to set them aside for later. Now it's just a case of finishing off the Swede dashi and cooking the noodles and then plating up the whole thing together. We're going to blanch the noodles. They're going to take 2 minutes in rapidly boiling water. You can see the water's boiling away there. We haven't put any salt in there. We don't need to because of the broth that we're going to put the noodles into. So the next stage, we're going to drop them straight into the hot water, boil away. The thickness we've cut these noodles, looking at them, they're going to take around about 2 minutes. Like I was saying earlier, how you cut the noodles is going to deter how long they take to cook in the water. So the thicker they are, the longer they are, so double up the cooking time. Just like pasta, through the cooking you can give them a little try to make sure you're happy with them. You just want that chew, bite, but you want them to be soft all the way through. As your noodles are cooking, you can just use the chopsticks to break them up. These are the chopsticks you're going to eat them with later. So when you think it's been a right amount of time, pull a noodle out and just give it a little try. Another minute and they'll be ready. So now it's been a right amount of time, we're going to drain the noodles. Now it's time to pass the Swede away from the dashi broth. So The Swede's been cooking in the dashi base, the granules that we added to it earlier, for about an hour at a slow simmer like this. That's took all of the flavour and all of the juice out of the Swede and concentrated the Swede flavour into the broth, which we're going to pour over the noodles. So after this amount of time, we're just going to put it through a sieve. So the Swede is now, all of the flavour of the Swede is now in the broth, and left behind is just the pulp of the Swede. It's a really good way of cooking Swede and infusing. You can see it's bright orange where it's been cooked. So we're just going to sieve away the broth. Discard the Swede now because it's done its job. There's no flavour left in there. All of the Swede flavour's into the dashi base. Everything's cooked now. We've got the noodles. They've been drained away from their water. We've got the Swede infused dashi, the soup base. We've got the garnishes that we chopped earlier. We've got an egg that we boiled in water for 8 minutes, drained it, cooled it down and then peeled it. That's going to be one of the last garnishes. And some sesame oil and toasted sesame seeds that I said you can buy from anywhere, Chinatown, any kind of supermarket. And now it's just a case of bringing the dish together and then enjoying it. So the first thing we're going to do, we're going to get the noodles in the bowl. Like that, you can see the noodles, they're the ones we cut by hand. We're now going to pour over the soup base, the Swede dashi. We're going to put the egg, that's going to go in. That's just going to gently warm through in the soup base. Now we're going to garnish with some of the garnishes. So we've got the spring onions in there, the chillies, and then we're going to top it with some of the coriander. All the stuff we did in advance. This is a great dish for doing loads of little steps and getting all the steps done in advance, and then it takes like 10 minutes to cook. And then lastly, some sesame oil and toasted sesame. Goes really well with the Swede. We've got the Swede infused dashi out of style of the show from the food bag. Some handmade noodles, an 8-minute egg, some really nice green garnishes, coriander, spring onions, and some sesame oil and toasted sesame. So our Swede dashi noodles